Great. So you just had the judges looking at your car. How did it go?
Yes, it was fine. I mean, it's easy to present this car because it has such a great history. It's a car that was born in 1933, but has pretty much every year of its history accounted for. It's never disappeared. It's always been raced. It's always been used actively, and as a result, it's numerous pictures of it exist. In fact, we just had a book published about the car as well, so it's a very easy car to present. The car itself is completely original. Original engine, original chassis, original body. It was repainted back to green about 20 odd years ago because the car was born green. It was the British Monza, very unique in that respect. And when after the war, it was painted red, which was not the original colour, although the classic Alfa colour. So the previous owner to me made, I think, the correct decision to paint it back to green, which is why the paintwork is as it is. And the car gets very actively used. I've driven it about 10,000 kilometres in the last 4 years.
I mean, it takes an effort, both with time and finances, to own and drive a car like this. Why did you fall for the 8C of all the fantastic cars out there?
Honestly, if you sit in that car and drive it, anyone would fall for it. It is the most extraordinary car. The history, of course, 8C's won everything. Multiple Targa Florios, 4 times Le Mans, the Mille Miglia for many years in a row, in different guises, including in Monza guise. This, of course, was the Grand Prix car rather than the long chassis Le Mans car. So the history is incredible. But much more importantly, in addition to that, you have the feeling. I mean, it's a remarkable car. This is a car that had a top speed of 220, 230 kilometers an hour in 1931. And it is still a very, very fast car. And I've driven this car and been followed by some very fast Ferraris, 250 short wheelbase, for example. And the owner of that car, who was a much better driver than me, on twisting roads could not keep up with this. It's an exceedingly fast car. The answer is I've done it 2 years in a row with my wife, and whilst she's not a nervous passenger, neither is she tolerant of too much danger. And to be honest, I suppose it's a great compliment that she feels very comfortable. But the reality is, when you do Mille Miglia, given that the cars start in date order, around me will be cars of 1933, 32 and so on. There is nothing that gets close to this speed-wise. So you do end up passing a lot of cars, modern and old, and it's exhilarating. And actually the magic thing about the Mille Miglia is it's the cars and the scenery in Italy, but the real magic is the people and the response that you get to driving an Alfa Romeo, an 8C, a Monza in Italy is just fantastic. I mean, it's really magical.
You speak about your wife and your car with the same passion.
I daren't answer that question. No, the truth is my wife was very supportive of the idea of buying this car. She absolutely loves it. She's very comfortable in it. And it's an uncomfortable car. It's exceedingly noisy. It's quite cramped inside. It gets very hot because we have the exhaust running down the outside. You spend in Mille Miglia, you spend 15 hours a day in the car, starting very early in the morning. And she's never raised a voice of complaint at any point. We didn't make a single wrong turn with her as a navigator. And as we crossed the finishing line last year, the first thing she said is, we have to come back and do this again.
So I guess you will, right? Will you drive them next year as well?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is something I'd like to do for as long as I possibly can, as long as they would have me, because I think it's nice for the car to be out there. It's nice for the car to be used, and for me, it's a massive privilege to be able to be driving this thing. It has certain peculiarities. These cars have a centre throttle, so the throttle and the brake are the opposite way around. It's something you get used to remarkably quickly, but it does some of these cars, the owners swapped the throttle and brake back to a more conventional relationship, which I think is totally wrong personally, but that's a matter of opinion. But it does mean that for other people to drive it when they're not used to that is rather difficult. So I tend to do all the driving in Mille Miglia. My wife navigates, but one of my sons has driven this car, and in due course I'd love to do it with actually all of my children, both as passengers and as drivers too.